For decades, almost every Disney Duck story featuring Magica Dispel has centered exclusively around just one thing. The first coin Scrooge McDuck ever earned. His number one dime. But what would actually happen if the evil sorceress actually got a hold of that dime? This is the other bin of Scrooge McDuck. When it comes to the life and times of Scrooge McDuck, it isn't his treasure, his mansion, or even his money bin that matters. Everything you need to know about Uncle Scrooge can be summed up in just a single object: his number one dime. It's the very first coin he ever earned, back when he was just a duckling in Scotland, and it both symbolized and helped create his entire work philosophy. Work smarter, not harder. Throughout the comics and the original Ducktales, many have wondered if the dime was a magical artifact, a lucky talisman that helped Scrooge earn his fortune. But the old duck himself has always claimed that it's merely a sentimental bauble, something that reminds him to work hard and not to get fooled by swindlers or cheats. Magica Dispel, on the other hand, sees it as a powerful magical talisman that will give her incredible power. What exactly the dime actually does for her, however, depends on the series. In the old comics, she thought it would give her the Midas touch, to be able to turn anything she touches into gold. Sometimes, she seems to think it'll give her the power to rule the world.
I will turn it into a charm of great strength, and then all the power and wealth in the world will be mine!
In Disney's Ducktales reboot, it's implied that she needs the dime to escape a curse that has her trapped in the literal shadow of her niece, Lena. That's probably why she spends most of Disney's Ducktales reboot trying to get Lena to steal the number one dime.
Could you stop? That's really annoying.
It's been one of the major continuing plot threads of the first season, and in the other bin of Scrooge McDuck, it gets taken to the next level when Lena gets caught sneaking around McDuck Manor.
What were you doing in Scrooge's room?
What were you doing there?
Oh, nothing. Definitely not collecting drool samples while he sleeps.
Lena is able to convince Webby that she was just stalking Scrooge as an idol, just like Webbigail herself kind of does. It's a bad lie, but it works. Webby doesn't tell any of the adults that she caught Lena standing over a sleeping Scrooge McDuck, but they can still tell that something strange is going on.
My number one dime has been tampered with.
But the filament is made from uncuttable enchanted quadrimond.
There's something afoot in this house, and I'm gonna find out what.
Until he can figure out what's happening, Scrooge decides to put his number one dime somewhere safe. In the other bin. If Uncle Scrooge had enough treasure to fill a second money bin, that wouldn't be much of a surprise. But that's not what this is. In fact, it's almost the opposite. The money bin keeps Scrooge's money safe from the rest of the world. His other bin keeps the world safe from everything else he finds. And if Scrooge keeps mystic swords, vengeful pirate ghosts, gold-eating dragons, and headless man-horses in the relatively unguarded mess of his garage, you can imagine what kind of chaotic artifacts he must keep locked away in a second bin.
Where Scrooge puts all his most dangerous finds and artifacts to keep them from prying hands. Why would you want to go there?
Webby should know better than to explore a vault filled with the most dangerous artifacts Scrooge McDuck has ever found. But her obsession with the McDuck family is her greatest weakness. On the promise of getting to see Scrooge's most prized possession, his number one dime, Lena convinces her to help her find and break into the secret bin. And yeah, that's a lot to take in, and we haven't even gotten to Huey, Dewey, and Louie's B story about hiding Bigfoot from Uncle Scrooge. But we'll get to that in a minute, because as much fun as that is, the other bin of Scrooge McDuck is really a story about friendship, trust, fear, and loyalty. More specifically, it's a turning point for Lena, a story that forces her to decide between the family ties that literally bind her to the spirit of her sorceress aunt, or the bonds of genuine friendship that she's formed with Webby. It's the moment where Lena needs to choose if she's on the side of good or evil. And this is a decision the character's been building toward for the entire season, and it's important. So far, Lena has walked a fine line between villain and hero, existing as a contradiction that could tip to either side in an instant. Yeah, she's built up a strong friendship with Webby, but they only became friends in the first place because her Aunt Magica Dispel ordered her to infiltrate Scrooge McDuck's family. She's helped Scrooge's family resolve some crises and been on some adventures with them, but she's also been the cause of some of their problems. And it doesn't help that she hasn't had full control over her place in these adventures either. Magica Dispelled lives in her shadow somehow, controlling her, telling her that the only way she can gain her freedom from their shared curse is to betray Scrooge and his family. The only people on the show that we genuinely see care for her. It's not easy for her. And after all that, it finally comes down to this episode, where Lena needs to make a choice between who she's forced to be and who she really wants to be. And the best part about that is that Lena might not even realize it herself. When she's talking to Magica, Lena acts like she doesn't truly care for Webby as a friend, but her actions betray her time and time again.
Oh no! Webby, catch!
Magica Dispel is literally holding Lena back and controlling her, but her hand is also almost symbolic of her own emotional barriers. Magica basically serves as Lena's excuse not to admit to herself that she really does want to be Webby's friend. And this episode serves as a breaking point between that facade and who Lena wants to be. But before we get into that, let's throw up a quick spoiler warning. Normally, I keep big story twists out of these reviews, but it's hard to talk about this conclusion without showing it. So consider the rest of this video open season on story spoilers for the other bin of Scrooge McDuck. Got it? Okay. While searching the other bin, Webby and Lena finally stumble across Scrooge's #1 dime, and all of Lena's worst fears become reality. Using the power of the dime, Magica grows in power, relentlessly teases Lena for using and abusing her friend like a puppet, and ultimately turns Webby into a caricature of herself and forces Lena to destroy her. It's a sudden, intense, and brutal scene that lays Lena's soul bare and then breaks her heart on top of it. It's also, fortunately, all just an illusion caused by one of the artifacts Scrooge has hidden in the other bin. And yeah, that is definitely a bit of a cop-out. But even the old "it's just a dream" trope can be useful when done well. And in this case, it might have been the only way to save Lena. For the entirety of her character arc, Lena's been keeping a devastating secret that could ultimately destroy the friendship she and Webby were building. If the secret actually came out in the way it did in her vision, she might never have been able to salvage the sisterhood she was building with Webby. Allowing her to realize her folly in a vision or an illusion, however, gives her the chance to change course before it's too late, to reject her aunt's influence and come clean to Scrooge and Webby. And she tries to, but
I didn't know I could do that. Neat. As the eclipse nears, my powers grow.
Guess I'll just have to get the dime myself.
it's a big, brooding cliffhanger. Just as Lena is finally ready to take a side and help herself, she truly loses her freedom. It's crushing, but it's also what will probably save her friendship in the long run. Now that Lena's possessed, whatever happens next with Magica, Webby, and Scrooge isn't her fault. And I think the McDuck clan will forgive her for that. Oh right, and there's something about Bigfoot in this episode. Yeah? Yeah, there is. I won't get into it too much, but there's a whole B story in this episode about Huey, Dewey, and Louie hiding a Bigfoot in the mansion. Huey and Dewey have fallen in love with this giant monster, but Louie is suspicious.
Tenderfeet doesn't know any better. He's just a lovable, simple-minded beast.
Simple-minded? He's making a sandwich out of panini breads!
It's a fun, goofy Duck Brothers adventure, and it really gives Louie's devious side a chance to shine. Even though this B story isn't at all the point of this episode, I couldn't let it pass without at least mentioning the design of Bigfoot himself. Does that guy look familiar? Well, that's probably because you've seen a Goofy movie. This giant Goofy monster is a dead ringer for the giant Bigfoot that ruins Goofy and Mac's camping trip. And it's a really cool nod. That's not this episode's only throwback reference either. Lena and Magical's illusion battle wasn't just emotional and tense, but nostalgic too. That doll Webby turned into is a dead ringer for the character's Ducktales 1987 design. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. At least it was just a dream. That was the other bin of Scrooge McDuck. There are only a few more episodes in this season of DuckTales, and from what the crew has showed off at Comic-Con, they're about to get pretty intense. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of them. Do you want to see more? Then like, subscribe, and check out my other videos if you want to. I'll upload more reviews just about as soon as I can. Until then though, take it easy, Internet.